What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can freely express themselves, straight up, no chaser. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Please make sure to share and like the video, and to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And also, please, if you can, support the channel. At cash.app, GwithaPhD. So, let me get into what I want to discuss right now. Now, usually I don't do something like I'm about to do, but I'm about to do some philosophy. And the reason for which I'm doing it will become apparent when it's done. So, I want to talk to you about Plato's Republic. In particular, I want to talk to you about Book 2 of Plato's Republic, where Socrates, who is the major interlocutor of the dialogue, Plato's Republic, or the book, whatever you want to call it, right? He's the major interlocutor, and Socrates is trying to show that being just is intrinsically valuable, that there's something good in and of itself in being good and upright and just as a person. But Glaucon, another interlocutor in this book, in this dialogue called Plato's Republic, argues that there is no intrinsic reason to be just, and that the only reason that people actually are just is that they're trying to avoid the consequences of their unjust actions. And he also, Glaucon, says that there's something anthropological that underpins his perspective, namely a theory that is quite common in ethics. It's called psychological egoism. Basically, psychological egoism says that people, by and large, are naturally selfish. They're naturally egoistic. They look out for number one first. They're selfishly motivated. That's it, right? So according to Glaucon, people are naturally selfish. They're going to be unjust. This is just how it is. And he says, let me tell you why. And he does so by means of a story. The story is called the Ring of Gyges. So according to this story, Gyges, who is a young shepherd and is in service to a king in the kingdom of Lydia. So one day he's out tending his flock when a storm occurs. And next to where he was tending his sheep, there was an earthquake, which basically opens up some chasm in the ground. So, being inquisitive, Gyges basically goes down into this chasm, where he sees, amongst other things, a bronze horse with doors on it. So he opens the doors. And when he does, he sees a skeleton of human form with a ring on its finger. And Gyges thinks to himself, damn, what a come up. Let me get that. So he takes the ring and puts it on his finger. And then he leaves, of course, the chasm. Now one day, about a month or so later, while tending his sheep, he notices that if he twists this ring on his finger, it gives him the power of invisibility. And that when he twists it, he could notice people saying slick shit about him that they normally wouldn't say in his presence. Now he's able to see or to actually hear what people really think about him. Damn. What power would What kind of power would that grant you? To be able to hear what people actually think about you? Because people don't always say openly what they actually think about you. They like to sugarcoat bullshit. Although they'll tell you, I keep it 100, dog, all times. Yeah. So anyway, Gyges, basically knowing that this newfound power puts him at an advantage over other people, arranges so that he can become a messenger to the king. So once in the court, he uses this ring to gain the graces of the queen. He seduces her. And he then conspires with the queen to kill the king and to take over the kingdom, and does it. Now, Gyges then uses this story and he says to Socrates that any man who had a similar power would do the same thing. If he could get away with committing crimes without suffering the consequences, he would do it. And that the only reason that people don't do things that are unjust and commit crimes is because they're afraid of getting caught. Remove the power of getting caught and you remove the blockage, the hindrance from people doing things that are unjust. So the only reason you are just is because you don't have a magical ring. And that you would suffer the negative consequences of doing things that are unjust. So the only reason you're actually just is because it's in your interest to be just, because you'll suffer negative consequences. Remove the negative consequences, you'll do all kinds of foul shit. Now, why am I telling you this story? What does it have to do with black men in the Manosphere? Well, recently, I conducted an interview with Dr. Tiasan Johnson. And after hearing what he has to say, it should become plainly clear exactly why it's pertinent and it's relevant to the conversation.
It's not just about a gender war. It's not about some men who got their hearts broke once and now they're out to get women. It's not about none of that. What it's about is the way the state played women against their men, offered symbolic class advancement to separate the families, to break up that family unit that was the basis of the civil rights movement, right? That was the basis of it. Once that family unit was broken up, hell, we got the lowest marriage rates out of any group. In the early 1970s, we had the highest. So within a generation, our marriage rates died. And that was principally because, again, when it came to family courts, when it came to no-fault divorce, that became something that structurally benefited women. They got child custody, they got child support, they got alimony. Men didn't get any of that. And for black men, we were lucky to be employed, especially by the time the 1970s ended. All our jobs in factories went overseas. So I don't talk about the gender war because I'm mad at some woman that broke my heart or because I want to get back at women and I hate them. Fuck all of that. I'm talking about the way the state has played one gender against another and offered structural benefits if you participate in that. And after several, 3 to 5 generations, depending on what scale you want to use, what that's done to individual black men and women in terms of how they see each other and what roles they play in each other's lives has dramatically changed the dynamic. So now, as a black male, if you want to get married, you can meet the sweetest woman in the world. But you have to actually wonder what she can do to you legally simply because she has that access. You have to now take into account, this may destroy my life for the next 18 years. You know, if you have a child, or, you know, she may get half your stuff, whatever it is. And it's something that we generally can't handle because we don't even have any inheritance to begin with. We don't have wealth. So now, you know, so this just the way this is set up structurally, what can happen to black men is so devastating. And it doesn't matter if you believe in this gender war. It doesn't matter what your thoughts are about black men or black women. It doesn't matter how much you love her. I've been married. I know what can happen after a decade. Y'all become 2 distinctly different people. And you actually, I mean, every person I've seen get divorced, they couldn't imagine from the day they got married where they ended up by the time they were in divorce court. They could not imagine. And they did not imagine that they had this woman who now had the state and the courts in her back pocket, what she could do simply because she was angry, right? But again, it's not the women that I'm talking about necessarily, and it's not even her anger. It's simply that the state is at her disposal to our detriment. That's the dynamic I'm pulling out and trying to focus on. It's really not just about the women. It's about what the women have access to and what that's done to us since the 1960s.
So yeah, right now, women in this culture are institutionally empowered to do things that are unjust. They will do it because the consequences for their actions are removed. Why not slap your boyfriend upside the fucking head? If he calls the police, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the one to go to jail. Why not marry this motherfucker and take all his cash? Or half of what he invested in? The system enables it. Why not do it? Why not have a kid by another man and tell the man that you're married to that that's your kid? Because at the end of the day, if she divorces and separates from you, you still got to pay the motherfucking child support. Yeah. So the problem that we're having today is that women have institutional power that we don't have, and it's corrupting them. And nobody's saying anything about it. The only thing they're doing is doubling down on their own oppression, when clearly they have an advantage and they're doing things that are unjust because they're not suffering any consequences for doing unjust things. Just something to think about. G with a PhD, Green Gorilla Channel. I'm out.